Jews are doing better than anybody else.
Anybody else?
All this talk of anti-Semitism, it's a joke.
You don't need to think about it for more than a couple of seconds to understand why he's full of shit. These are horrendous arguments. This is from 2015. How long has he been like this? Apparently there's this video of Norman Finkelstein in 2015 being asked if there's a rise in anti-Semitism in Europe. Quite short. Apparently I was supposed to see what he says he's saying here, so let's have a look.
Yes.
Sorry, what's your opinion on the claim that saying if we go against Israel, it means that we are anti-Semitism?
There's just no evidence for these claims about a rise of anti-Semitism in Europe. We have to all renew our battle against anti-Semitism. It's just not true. The opinion polls are pretty clear. By far and away, the most accepted minority in all the Western countries, by far and away, are Jews. In any of the, in Europe and in the United States. And you could see it, for example, in the US, where the sign of acceptance.
I mean, this is 4 years ago, so this is 2019. Anti-Semitism rising sharply across Europe, experts said, as France reported a 74% increase in the number of offences against Jews last year. Germany, the number of violent anti-Semitic attacks surged by more than 60%. I also feel like when it comes to hate, people talk about acceptance. And I feel like if you're on the left, I think a problem is that people only say that like there's not anti-Semitism is not a big issue because their material conditions are fine, right? Like because they're about as wealthy as the average person. But that doesn't account for hate crimes, right? Because I feel like in every country that's in Europe or United States, like it seems to be, Europe or North America, it feels like the hate crime stats for Jews are like, they're either the biggest recipients of hate crimes or the second. Either like second to Muslims or, well, I don't know, like trans people, like black trans women, or I don't know. But they're pretty high up on the list of recipients of hate crime. I don't know if there's anything from 2015. Apparently things were fine in 2015, but let me see. I'll have a look.
Where you know what's called assimilation has tipped. The signs.
Sorry, a hate crime, generally speaking, I don't know if it's different across different countries, but a hate crime is just a regular old crime, like assault or harassment or verbal abuse, but it's something that would be a crime anyway, but it's motivated by hatred. That's what a hate crime is. That's at least how it's defined in the UK. I don't know if it's different across different countries, because I know some people say that like a tweet that's questioning the Holocaust or something is like hate crime. I don't think that's actually how it works. I think a lot of those cases like in the UK where people get in trouble for tweets and shit like that is to do with obscenity laws or offense laws, but not hate crime laws. Hate crime, I think, is quite specific. Like it has to be something that would have been a crime anyway. And hate is just the motive. So there's something here from Human Rights Watch about anti-Semitism very much alive in Europe. In January 2015, 4 Jewish men killed in a kosher supermarket in Paris. People attacked in the synagogue in Copenhagen. In 2014, UK Community Security Trust reported the highest number of anti-Semitic incidents it ever recorded. London Metropolitan Police recorded a 120% rise in anti-Semitic crime in 2014. Yeah, he's just bullshitting. Is saying river to the sea a hate crime? No. I don't think there's any, unless there's, again, I know the UK, and this is different in different countries. I don't think it could be a crime in a sense of like, some people might call it a like offensive speech, but it's not hate crime. No. I really doubt it. I actually doubt there's any crime there, but yeah.
It's always intermarriage. That is, when the dominant culture is willing to marry you. That's the sign of assimilation has tipped, and it's coming to, the friction is...
hate speech and hate crime are not the same thing, sorry.
Significant friction is coming to an
They're
end.
completely different categories.
Well, in the United States today, I would say there isn't a single ruling class family that hasn't intermarried with Jews. when the premier American family, as all of you know, the premier American family is Bill and Hillary Clinton, the premier political family.
Hate crimes are a weird classification. If a homeless person, if a homeless black person robs a Jewish person because they believe Jews have money, is that hate? Yeah, why not? If they think Jews have all the wealth and they rob a Jewish person specifically for that reason, and they target them because they're Jewish, yeah, of course that's outrageous. That's a crime that's motivated by hatred. Just because you're a group that it might be economically less well advantaged doesn't mean you're incapable of committing hate crimes. No. It's like if a homeless white person mugs a black billionaire arms dealer, like arms manufacturer executive, because they think black people don't deserve to have power and wealth and power in the United States. That, yeah, of course, it's still a hate crime, even though their material conditions are less advantageous. Yeah, I don't
know. They had one child. The one child marries a Jew. Second major political family, the Cuomos. Mario Cuomo just passed away. Their daughter.
What if their goal is only to get money and they just believe they have a higher chance because the person has a yarmulke? I think the way hate crime works is it's either got to be perceived credibly by either the witness or the victim. I think if you got robbed because you're a Jew, you were targeted because you're a Jew, yeah, I think that's probably a fairly reasonable qualifier. Jesus.
I think, marries a Jew. When Jews are being completely accepted by ruling elites, the dominant class, it's a very hard case to claim that we're having a rise of anti-Semitism. It's
very
quite
hard.
The contrary. So what you do find is, if you look at the opinion polls, there is a spike in anti-Semitism. There's a spike in increase every time Israel launches one of its murderous invasions. So in 2002, during Operation Defensive Shield, yes, you saw an increase in anti-Semitic acts in Europe, less so in the US. Then 2008-9 during Operation Cast Lead, and then this past summer. That's not anti-Semitism in any meaningful sense. That's a state that calls itself Jewish, carrying on a horrifying way. And so people react to it against Jews. If you want to prevent the anti-Semitism, there's two.
Being a Jew in Europe or America, being held accountable for the actions of the state of Israel because you're Jewish. What? Would he say that the... I'm sorry. Oh, God. Would he say that the violence against Jews in the Middle East after the Nakba? Again, Middle Eastern Jews who had nothing to do with 1948, with the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. It's the same principle, isn't it? It's the same logic. What the? Yeah, that would be a hate crime. Yeah, fuck me. Oh God. Would you say that violence against Muslims after 9/11 is not bigoted? I don't know. Well, he would never apply himself consistently here, right? God.
Two things you can do.
He isn't saying it's rational, it's clearly true. Do you think that's not anti-Semitic? If Israel does an offensive operation in Gaza and commits war crimes, and Jews in Europe suffer the consequences of that, yeah. I would say that's yeah. Wow.
Number one, you could stop committing massacres, or number two, stop calling yourself a Jewish state. Just call yourself Israel. And then I think the number of anti-Semitic acts will go back down, even with...
This is like Muslims getting attacked because ISIS is in the news. Well, yeah, Stop beheading people and put in orange jumpsuits. Stop setting fire to people in cages whilst calling yourselves the Islamic State. Bro! I feel like there was a period where Finkelstein had like a good reputation, right? Where he was a bit more reasonable. But when was that? Was that like, because this is from 2015. How long has he been like this? These are horrendous arguments. These are, you don't need to think about it for more than a couple of seconds to understand why he's full of shit. But, okay.
Before and after the assaults. And the third thing is, Martin Luther King, for those of you who know the fellow.
Hey.
I don't know what this new generation. All you seem to know is yada, yada, yada. No, that's not fair. Martin Luther
Zoomers.
King, somebody once said to him, Martin Luther King, if you keep these protests and you keep causing all of this tension and friction and all of this, white people aren't going to love you. King responded, first, I want them to stop lynching us. And then I'll worry about whether or not they love me. And so one has...
Yeah, but Martin Luther King wasn't committing hate crimes, like racially motivated crimes against white people. What? Martin Luther King was very much constantly saying things like, we love our white brother and all this shit. He was wanting to get integrated with American society. He wanted enfranchisement and desegregation. I don't really know if I don't know why Martin Luther King protesting in the streets, boycotting racist bus companies, or sitting at lunch counters in segregated spaces asking to get served. And absorbing attacks from Klan members and shit. I don't really know if that's quite the same thing. What's he talking about? Like, this is really...
has to have an order of priorities. There are, of course, prejudices against, not prejudices, call them prejudices, call them stereotypes. So you look at me, most of you are thinking, oh, he must be cheap. Yeah, I'm sure. No, you do.
He's gone full. It does really remind me of the kind of arguments that people from the intellectual dark web would make. Just like so unabashedly pseudo-intellectual. Like, yeah, it's really... Ugh.
That just is life. You learn to live with all sorts of what you might call social stigmas. It's not the end of the world. If you had a choice in any European country where they say, oh, the anti-Semitism is going, berserk. Choose any European country. If you're in France, ask yourself a simple question. If you're in France, would you rather be Jewish or short? Would you rather be Jewish or obese? Or take another one. Would you rather be Jewish or ugly? Now, that's not a joke. Anybody who's realistic about society knows being good-looking opens many doors, being ugly closes many doors. That's life. You learn to live with it. You don't make the world is so...
Anti-Semitic acts. This is from 2023, so... Stars of David tagged on a wall in Paris. Bro, in Europe! 486 people arrested for such offenses. Oh, God.
Plagued with so many horrifying crimes, so much suffering. So somebody thinks I'm cheap. Okay, I can live with it. Especially because I got an excellent education. I had every opportunity in life in the United States. Went to the best schools. I got to devote my life to reading, which I happen to love to do. So, okay, some people have some prejudices about me. But if you take it at the legal level, Jews are doing better than anybody else.
Anybody else?
All this talk of the anti-Semitism. just a joke.
Bro, just fuck this guy. Like, how people like this guy? What the fuck, man? So we got, apparently there's no evidence of increasing anti-Semitism in Europe in 2014, 2015, even though it seems to be the case that there was. If there is a rise in attacks against Jews in Europe and North America when Israel does something, that's not anti-Semitism. That's Israel's fault. The fuck, man? Come on. And also, Jews have it better than anyone else. Better than white people. Oh, God. That's such a wacky... That's such a strange segment from 8 years ago. So it seems like he's been a bit cuckoo for a while. What did I think of the USA in 2015? Jews have the highest income of any religion in the US. That's just economic standing, though. I know, but that's the problem, is if you get into this position where you're like a very, like, I guess, like orthodox. I don't even know what political, like what Finkelstein is, whether he's like a socialist or a liberal or whatever. But like, yeah, if you do adopt that kind of like orthodox Marxist view, then all you care about is like money and wealth, right? Like material conditions. Whereas I don't know. I feel like being a bit more wealthy than other minorities, but then also dealing with like increased hate crimes every time the state of Israel does something. Like, fuck, like, what a horrible thing to say. He said he used to be a Maoist. Yeah, but lots of these people, there are like right-wing like prominent right-wing journalists in the UK who used to be like Trotskyists and Marxist-Leninists. So it doesn't really mean anything. Remember, a lot of these people were around during the Cold War, right? When it was much more sexy to support the Soviet Union. There's an ADL thing here about anti-Semitism on college campuses. Oh, sorry, wasn't this recent? Wait, hang on. USA polls Holocaust denial. Isn't there like a really alarming number of young Americans who either don't know dick about the Holocaust or think it's fake? Like, where did this poll come from? The Economist and YouGov. Those who do believe the Holocaust is a myth are more likely to be under the age of 30. 20% of people under 30 strongly agree or tend to agree that the Holocaust is a myth. Where are these Zoomers coming from? These must be right-wingers, though. When people talk about left-wing anti-Semitism, I don't think left-wing anti-Semitism generally expresses itself as Holocaust denial. I don't think that's the case. Israel exploits... Oh, we can see it by Democrats. Democrats are more likely than Republicans to say that Israel exploits Holocaust victimhood for its own purposes. They're more likely to say the Holocaust is a myth than Republicans. Ooh. Guys, we gotta save the Dems. God, wow. I mean, I can imagine most of these questions Republicans will, like, I don't know. I feel like Republicans are still, because the thing with Republicans is they can be anti-Semitic but also support Israel, like the Glenn Beck thing. But I don't know how prevalent that is anymore. I don't know. Anyway, since I'm recording this segment, I might as well put another part in because it's quite short so far. Sorry to repeat myself, but I've noticed this poll going around saying that 72% of Palestinians think Hamas was right to perpetrate the October 7th massacre, despite the subsequent destruction of Gaza, from PCPSR. And also, the problem is that, again, I bookmarked this because I wanted to remember it. This poll, yeah, I'm going to stick by the fact that this poll is cited in bad faith. Because when you look at the PCPSR poll, the same one that these, I think these guys are like Polish right-wingers, I don't know. They're some kind of right-wing group. Because if you look at the poll they're citing, there is a bit of context to it, which still isn't great, but it's still like, it's very different from what they're saying. It's worth noting that there are significant differences between the attitudes of the residents of the West Bank compared to those of the Gaza Strip in terms of the correctness of the Hamas decision and other matters, as the attitudes of Gazans tend to show a greater degree of skepticism about that decision. That's quite interesting. Remember I said very early on that it felt like Hamas were more popular in the West Bank than they are in Gaza, based on a couple of polls that came before October 7th, and also the protests that were pro-Hamas in the West Bank. It's interesting how that works, that kind of like the grass is greener on the other side almost, but also more just that the further away you are from Gaza and the more that your information is being filtered through the media, the more likely you are to support Hamas than the people who actually live in Gaza. I thought that was really interesting. The fact that people in the West Bank prefer Hamas to compared to the people in the people in Gaza. It is clear from the finding that believing in the correctness of Hamas's decision does not mean support for all acts that might have been committed by Hamas fighters on October 7th. The overwhelming majority of respondents say that they have not seen videos from international or social media showing atrocities committed by Hamas members against Israeli civilians that day, such as the killing of women and children in their homes. Indeed, more than 90% believe that Hamas fighters did not commit the atrocities contained in these videos. When asked what is or is not allowed in war under international humanitarian law, the findings indicate that the vast majority believes that attacking or killing civilians in their homes is not permissible. The majority, except in Gaza Strip, also believe that taking civilians as hostages or prisoners of war is not permissible. So, why is this happening? Is this because they are deliberately ignorant? Is this because they're lying? Is this because they've honestly just been digesting way too much propaganda? Is it because Arab media is very different from Western media? Like, it could be a few things. I want to give my own interpretation. It seems to be that when it comes to Palestinians, there is this trend, and you can see this when they're interviewed and in polling. It seems to be the case that Palestinians, when they're asked what they think about violence against civilians, worded in that way, they will usually say they're against it. But if they're asked what they think of suicide bombing, or I think the what they call it in Arabic is like suicide. Is it no? What do they call it? Martyr operations? They call it a different word. Martyrdom fires, or but they call it a different thing. But they'll support that, basically. They'll usually say they'll often say they like that. And the reason you get martyrdom operations, the reason you will get those discrepancies, I think, is because one, Palestinians feel a lot of social pressure to support militant action, especially in Gaza, where if you don't support Hamas, you might get in trouble, right? But also because there is just this tradition amongst Palestinians to kind of like always feel like you have to express some solidarity for militant action, or like for anyone who seems like they're doing something. And that's just like a pretty strong indication of just how fucked the Palestinian situation is, right? Like, because they feel like they've tried everything. They, like, a lot of the citizens, they feel like they supported the peace process in the 90s. They feel like they can't protest like peacefully. It's not like legal in a lot of the West Bank and in Gaza. Who are they going to protest against? And and then there's just like this really strange like social culture around saying like around feeling they need to support people who are just going to do something, right? Even if it's something like October 7th, which seems to have not really helped anyone. So that's kind of where I'm at. And it's very possible for them to hold that position whilst also saying they oppose killing civilians. So, I just feel there's a bit of context in there, because I noticed, and I hate this, is that people who use this information, I looked through the comment section of this tweet, the replies, some of the more popular replies were things like this, right? They built the most toxic society on earth. How are we supposed to have sympathy for them? Quotation mark, innocence. Pro-Palestine equals pro-Hamas. Don't let anyone fool you on the narrative. Those would be the, quote, citizens who went over with Hamas on October 7th to participate. Again, just to be clear, even if they support everything that happened on October 7th, you're a civilian. Sorry. Like, that's just what, having mental opinions, right? Having dark opinions doesn't make you a military target, okay? That's not enough, but, I just thought I would throw some context into that quote, because I feel like when people you can say it's alarming. You can say that there's like an issue with the fact that so many people in Palestine who support October 7th don't actually know exactly what happened, or that there is a problem with this like default position of supporting militant action, even if it doesn't help anyone. Yeah, that's a problem. But and it doesn't help the Palestinian cause either, because clearly Hamas's actions don't. They make things worse for everyone. Everyone. But I don't like it the way people use this as an excuse to legitimize like attacking civilians. Yeah, it's just not good. Not good at all. Whew.